minus h squared over a squared plus y minus k squared over b squared equals 1. The equation for an ellipse always needs to be equal to 1. The center is at h, k. A is the distance from the center to the horizontal vertices. B is the distance from the center to the vertical vertices. C is the distance from the center to the focal points. The major axis is the distance between the vertices. The minor axis is the distance between the co-vertices. When we have a horizontal ellipse, that means the major axis is the horizontal axis and the minor axis is the vertical axis. This will happen when A is greater than B. The C value is going to be calculated by taking the square root of A squared minus B squared. The center is at h, k. The focus is going to be h plus or minus c, k. The vertices are h plus or minus a, k, and the co-vertices are h, k plus or minus b. For a vertical ellipse, the difference is the major axis is vertical and the minor axis is horizontal. We calculate c by doing b squared minus a squared and taking the square root of that. The center is still h, k. For the focal points, we're going to add or subtract c from the k value. To find the vertices, we're going to add or subtract b from the k value. And to find the co-vertices, we're going to add or subtract a from the h value. The focal points are always going to be along the major axis, no matter which way your ellipse is going to be facing. Write the equation and graph the vertical ellipse given the center 3, negative 4. The major axis is 14 and the minor axis is 6. h, k is given, that's 3, negative 4. Since it's a vertical ellipse, we know that B is going to be half of the major axis and A is going to be half of the minor axis. So the B value is going to be 7 and the A value is going to be 3. To find the vertices, we're going to add or subtract 7 from the K value. 3, negative 4 plus or minus 7, we end up with the two vertices at 3, 3 and 3, negative 1. The co-vertices, we're going to add or subtract 3 from the H value, so we get 3 plus or minus 3, negative 4. So we have 0, negative 4, and 6, negative 4. To fill in all the pieces to the equation, we get x minus 3 squared over 9. 9 comes from the a value squared. And then y plus 4 squared over 49. 49 comes from the b value squared, equals 1. To get the locations of the foci, we need to take the square root of b squared minus a squared. So we get the square root of 40. Since this is a vertical ellipse, we're going to take our c value and add or subtract it to the k value. So we get 3, negative 4 plus or minus 40, the square root of 40. And when we plug that into our calculator, we get 3, 2.3 and 3, negative 10.3. So we are going to plot all of the points on our graph first, and then connect all of the vertices and the co-vertices. The last thing you're going to do is you're going to label all of the points on your graph. Make sure you label your points. The graph is incomplete without the points being labeled. Next, we're going to graph x squared minus 2x plus 4y squared plus 48 plus 45 equals 0. The first thing you do is you move the constants to the other side. Then we're going to have to complete the square. So we gather all of our x terms together, x squared minus 2x. And since there's a coefficient in front of the y squared and you can only complete the square for coefficients that are 1, you're going to factor out that 4. So you make sure you pull out the 4 from the y squared and from the 48y. We find the two values that are going to complete the square for both the x terms and the y terms, so that's adding 1 to the x, adding 36 into the y parentheses. And remember that you need to add whatever you added to one side needs to be added to the other side of the equal sign. So we add 1 and then add 4 times 36. We can't forget to include that coefficient since the 4 is on the outside of the parentheses. We need to add 4 times 36 to the other side. So then we get x minus 1 squared plus 4 parentheses x plus 6 squared equals 100. We need to divide everything by whatever coefficient it equals because the equation for an ellipse needs to equal 1. So you're going to divide everything by 100 and simplify. X minus 1 squared over 100 plus y plus 6 squared over 25 equals 1. So here we have our equation. Our a value is going to be the square root of 100. Our b value is going to be the square root of 25. It's going to be a horizontal ellipse because a is greater than b. Our center we get from h and k, 1, negative 6. The vertices, since it's a horizontal ellipse, we're going to add a to the h value. So we have 1 plus or minus 10, negative 6. We get negative 9, negative 6. And 11, negative 6. The covertices, we're going to add or subtract 5 to the k value. So we get 1, negative 11, and 1, negative 1. To find the focus, the two focal points, we need to take the square root of a squared minus b squared. We get the square root of 75. If you ever get a negative inside the square root, that means you subtracted the wrong numbers from each other. You should always end up with a positive here. And since this is a horizontal ellipse, we are going to add and subtract the square root of 75 from the h value. So we get 1 plus or minus 75 equals negative 6. 1 plus or minus square root of 75, negative 6. And then we end up with 9.7, negative 6, and negative 7.7, negative 6. Plot the points first, all of your vertices, your center, and your focal points. Connect all of the vertices and label your points. So now what you're going to do is you're going to try these two problems yourself and you're going to show Ms. G by the end of class. This will count as a homework grade and I need to see it before you leave today. So you're going to write the equation and graph the horizontal ellipse. Horizontal, make sure you pay attention to that. Given the center, the major axis, and the minor axis. And then you're going to graph the ellipse 9x squared plus 54x plus 4y squared minus 24y minus 27 equals 0.